Hi, I'm Tim, and welcome to Watch You Want. Thanks for logging on. Today, we're looking at the watch that puts dude back in subdued. This is the PAM 118 Luminor Marina Titanium, 44 millimeters with a titanium case, brushed, of course, matching brushed titanium bezel, and a tobacco sandwich dial that has incredible impact in the flesh, but not incredible impact on the flesh. Due to the titanium case and that classic Luminor cushion profile, I'm jumping right into the wrist impression here because the way this one wears is extraordinary. Now, in 1998, we saw the first of the titanium Luminor models, and this one really harks back to that classic PAM 36 limited edition of 200. Now, the 36 was the first to combine this tobacco dial with the brushed titanium look, and more than the look is the feel. If you're familiar with watches like the Audemars Piguet Bumblebee, the forged carbon, how the watch has a big, imposing wrist stance, but it doesn't feel that way. It feels almost smaller than a 40 millimeter stainless steel Rolex sport watch on a bracelet. I would say this feels about the size of something like a 36 millimeter President on leather. Very light, really spreads its mass well on the wrist. You can see on my wrist, which is 6 1/3 inches, that's 16 centimeters for our friends in the metric territories around the world. The watch fits well, it looks right, and because it's so light, it's the kind of thing you're really only going to notice when you want to, but everyone's going to notice looking at it. This watch has incredible presence and personality. Now, everything that the standard Panerai Luminor has, and it's got a lot going for it, the PAM 118 has, but it improves upon the basic formula. Again, just with that stunning color combination, which is unusual because for the most part with Panerai, you're going to be looking at a black dial, sometimes a white dial, almost never a tobacco dial. Combine that unusual dial color with the sort of grayish blue of a brushed or satin titanium, and you get something that's very unique and very special. Now, there's one more wrinkle that this watch offers that sort of tweaks the standard Panerai look, and that's the addition of a dark brown alligator leather strap. Now, alligator is something you don't see too often on Panerai for historical reasons. Traditionally, the watches were worn on an untreated calfskin. If you're familiar with the Panerai Assolutamente strap, it's like that, where you can see the grain of the natural calf leather, and it's really kind of a multicolored mottled look, like a bear hide, minimally treated. This eschews that for a more upscale and refined dark brown alligator with a tight contrasting white stitch. It looks very dramatic, and it beautifully complements that tobacco chocolate tone of the dial with the contrasting stitch nicely keyed to the graphics and the indexes and hands of the watch. A nice little nod to color coordination and attention to detail comes in the form of the hour and minutes hands, which are black oxidized, so that with the exception of the lume that's painted onto them, they almost disappear against the dark of the dial. Now, the seconds hand isn't treated that way because it's so small it might disappear entirely if it were completely color coordinated. Panerai is first and foremost descended from military tools. Legibility is king, and in particular, legibility on the Luminor dial is king. It's what Paneristi look for, so this remains white, it remains visible. It remains a very practical watch in every sense, and at night it glows like a torch. But the bottom line is, this PAM 118 is not just the quintessential 44 millimeter cushion-cased Luminor, it has that gorgeous, unique aesthetic to it. And it also has a wonderful history behind it, with the PAM 36 and the story of the first titanium Luminor lending its name, or essentially lending its color contrast combination to this Luminor Marina. The bottom line is that the PAM 118 is also a rare watch, built from 2002 to 2003. Only about 4,200 of these were manufactured, so it's not something you're going to see every day. These days, Panerai makes about 75,000 to 80,000 watches a year, and in the scope of that kind of production, especially over a decade on, you just don't see too many of these PAM 118s. They're kind of scattered to the four corners of the world. When collectors get them, they tend to hang on to them. Not only is it great looking and a pleasure to wear on the wrist, but this watch, because it's a little bit more subdued than the high polished Panerai models, wears well with formal attire. Now, it's often been said that alligator is inherently just a more formal leather, and I would have to agree with that. You see more dress watches on gator than on calf, so this pairs very well with darker dress attire, and because the watch has that classic Panerai tumble home bezel, it will actually slide under a sleeve fairly well. Beyond that, The watch has all the iconic Luminor features that you've come to expect. There's that crescent-shaped device protecting the crown and the famous locking lever. Still a Panerai patent-protected original. This allows you to open and close, basically to use to wind, to manipulate the crown without worrying about repeatedly working over the crown seals of a screw-down crown. If you can imagine an Omega Seamaster, a Rolex Submariner, how much you have to turn it just to get to the time setting and winding functions. You're wearing down the seals within the crown, on the stem, within the stem tube. Every time you pull it in and out, screw it in and out, every time you turn it unnecessarily. And Panerai realized as far back as the 1950s that this was dangerous on a watch designed for aquatic conditions, so they implemented this locking lever. Secure and secure from blows when it's closed. It makes manipulation of the crown with wet hands, sweaty hands, military gloves a breeze. Now this is the image of the famed Panerai combat diver 6152 that debuted in the early 1950s. So in terms of historical authenticity, you don't just have that link to the latter-day PAM 36, but you have the spit-and image of the last of the great Panerai combat watches, as used by Italian tactical swimmers and Allied forces. So there's heritage on multiple levels going here. There's that combat heritage, that mil-spec sort of provenance and breeding. There's the modern heritage of the first titanium Luminor, lending its look, lending its aura and persona to this PAM 118. And then there's the fact that, you know, having been issued 2002, 2003, this is now becoming a vintage Panerai classic in its own right. So multiple levels of history, multiple levels of appeal. And of course you have Panerai's Unitas-based, originally pocket watch movement. This is the PAM, or I should say Panerai OP11 movement. Now it's important because this movement is based on the Unitas 6497, so it is originally a pocket watch caliber designed during the 1950s, so it's the contemporary, development-wise, of that original Panerai 6152 combat watch. Panerai has improved this one considerably, with a swan's neck regulator, very upscale, very precise for adjustments, but also securing the index against inadvertent movement. If the watch is shocked while on the wrist, it won't change the timing of the watch by moving that stick index, which regulates the speed of the escapement. It's also got beautiful finishing on the bridges with the Panerai signature. You see the heat-blued screws in deep dark cobalt, the violet of the pivot jewels. You can see that the gear train, both the train carrying the power to the escapement and the wheels that actually carry the power from the crown to the mainspring barrel, have been improved with, in the case of the rhodium-plated crown and ratchet wheel, a radial dressage, brushing, or grain pattern, and on the wheels of the train there's a circular dressage or graining pattern. And finally, COSC spec components have been spec'd for this watch. This watch has the highest grade of hairspring, balance, and escapement wheel, allowing it to attain chronometer status from the factory. This is something Panerai no longer does with its in-house movements, so to have one of these classic Unitas pocket watch based movements, not only is it in sync with Panerai history, because let's face it, the historic combat watches were pocket watch powered, it looks the business and it adds that additional refinement of a chronometer certificate. And when you buy this PAM 118 Luminor Marina Titanium from Watch You Want, you get that chronometer certificate. In fact, you get all of the documents of provenance, all of the factory manuals, and all of the boxes that originally shipped with this distinctive, unique, and historic PAM 118 reference. If that sounds good to you, and it sounds pretty good to me, it feels even better on the wrist. Check it out on our website in high-res images at our website, Watch You Want. And I'm confident, if you're into titanium, if you're into Panerai, if you're into history, this will be the watch you want.